Alright everyone, welcome back for another live naturalist chat. We are going to be talking about how to build a campfire. So the weather is perfect for this. Maybe you're spending more time outside now that it's not too crazy hot and you want to go camping and see some fall color, and maybe you want to have a campfire. So we are all about being able to enjoy the great outdoors here and how we can use our natural resources responsibly. And so this is to teach you a little bit about building a campfire and how to be safe when doing so. Alright, so to get us started, we have to know a little bit about fire. So if we're looking at this little triangle right here, we actually have, this is the fire triangle, and it's what you need to be able to have a campfire. So you need to have heat of some sort, you need to have oxygen, and you need to have fuel in order to have a fire. And so heat can be matches, a lighter, or something to cause a spark. Oxygen means that you need to have your area well ventilated and be able to not smother your sources of fuel, and then you need to have your fuel sources. Now when it comes to your fuel sources, you're going to actually build up to it. And so we have a few different types of fuel sources here. So to start you off with, you need some tinder. And tinder is something that's very, very small to be able to start you off with. Pine needles make excellent tinder. And then you also will want some teeny tiny little twigs. It doesn't matter how long they are as long as they fit into your campfire ring, but they need to be small in diameter. So when I'm rolling it in my fingers, that needs to be small enough. This is what's going to start your fire. But before we get going building our fire and using these different fuel sources, do want to say we've got to take some safety precautions into consideration. So I know that there's a lot of younger outdoor enthusiasts who watch this, and so make sure that you're not building a fire unless you have adult supervision, okay? That way, if things get out of hand, you have someone who can help you put it out, and so you don't cause a wildfire or burn down something important. All right, so our safety considerations also need to be that we need an area that's nice and cleared out. So we have from the Forest Service, we have this really cool Smokey Bear's Guide to Campfire Safety. And so it's going to talk to us through actually building a campfire, and it's going to talk about some safety considerations as well. So this is something that's easy to find online, and it's something that you can have with you whenever you go and have a campfire so you can remember some of these safety precautions. So before you ever get started, and we're going to talk about collecting what you need to get started, but you also need to make sure that you're in an area that's protected from wind gusts. If you're building a campfire when you're camping, you want to make sure that everything, your campfire is made away from your tent, away from sleeping bags, away from jackets or anything flammable, because even though your campfire may only be this big, sparks can fly and it can cause singed holes in some of your equipment, but it can also lead to a fire. You also want to make sure that you clear out at least a 10-foot diameter area so that there's no debris, leaves, sticks, or anything like that that can cause to catch fire, which would spread. So make sure that area is all clear of debris. It's really good to build, to dig down and build a small pit or a basin if you're not using an already established fire ring. That way you're down to bare dirt. You can make a little berm of dirt around it, or even better, you can continue to add rocks around the ring of your campfire as well, just to be on the safe side. All right, Smokey Bear recommends a 1 foot deep in the center of your basin for building a fire. Don't use any flammable liquids to make a fire, because one, as soon as those flammable liquids burn off, you're not going to be able to have anything going with your fire. A lot of times it doesn't work as well as people think. It causes this big whoosh of fire, and then once it's burned off, it goes down to nothing. But flammable liquids can also be very dangerous. So we're going to show you how to make a fire without using flammable liquids. You're going to need 3 things. We talked about the first thing. We talked about tinder, all your little tiny things. You can also use a little bit of fat lighter. So fat lighter is the part of a pine tree. So if you see a pine tree, it's down. Of course, with all of this stuff, it needs to be dry wood. It needs to be older wood. It doesn't need to be just freshly fallen and still green. It's just going to cause a lot of smoke. But you can actually break off little bits of the inside of a pine tree, and because the inside of a pine tree has a lot of sap and resin, it catches fire really quickly, and it will last a bit so that you can continue to build your fire. So tinder, and then we need kindling. Kindling is going to be a little bit bigger. So we start getting from our little twigs to slightly bigger twigs, and then this is what kindling would be. So about something that's a 1-inch diameter around. And once you get your kindling going, then you actually move on to firewood. Okay, it takes a while to get to this step, so you have to be patient, and we're going to show you, we're going to walk you through making a fire, and so you get to see the process firsthand. We're going to use a lighter today, but something that's always great to have in your backpack is some waterproof matches that are in a sealed container, so that you can take this with you in case of emergencies and be able to start a fire. And these matches, they last a long time, and they're pretty wind resistant as well. So this is something always great to have around. We're not going to go through how to make a fire with flint and steel today, because we're not going to spend that much time. That might be part 2. But today we're going to use a lighter. Smokey Bear also shows you a couple of different ways that you can build a campfire. So some styles that you can use are the teepee fire, the crossfire, and the log cabin. And there's benefits to each of these, and they're really easy to build. We're going to start with something called a lean-to fire though today, because it's probably one of the easiest fail-safe ways to build a fire. So that's what we're going to do today. See that leaf get me? The leaves are falling. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you our campfire ring. If you have any questions or comments, please talk to me. So this is our campfire ring. We've cleared out all the debris that could catch fire in the area. We've dug down. We have this berm right here of dirt to make sure that everything stays contained. And we have our tools already assembled, and included in our tools is a bucket of water, of course, and also a shovel, so that we can help mix in water when we're going to put our fire out. So shovels can also help if you need to swat down a spark that's gotten away, and that can help you put out a fire before it gets too bad. Alright, so with a lean-to fire, we actually start, let's see, my shadow. If I can get my shadow out of the way. So this is our dug down pit of dirt, and we start with one log. We have our tinder, our smallest tinder, which is our pine needles underneath, and then we've leaned up these little twigs up against the fire. So that's why it's called a lean-to fire. So we've leaned it against this log. Now it's really important that anytime you're building a fire, you make sure there's lots of air movement that can come through there, because if we remember, with our fire triangle, you need oxygen to build a fire, as well as heat and fuel. So we've made sure there's plenty of oxygen that can come through here. And the other thing is to be patient, because you need oxygen. If you keep piling on materials, you'll actually stifle out the oxygen and your fire won't be able to grow. All right, so we have our fuel, we have our oxygen, and now we add heat. Now fire goes up, so we want to start from the bottom. And so our pine needles are nice and dry. They catch very quickly. And now we're letting it grow a little bit, but those little twigs are not going to be able to last very long. So the bigger the fuel you use, the longer it'll last. So we're going to move on to our slightly bigger sticks on top of this. In this stage, we move pretty quickly. We don't want it to completely burn out and us not have nothing. We also need to be very careful of our fingers. So this is something that might be challenging for some of our younger outdoor enthusiasts who want to build a fire, because you are getting your fingers kind of close. So having longer sticks is very helpful so that you can place your sticks over your lean-to fire and not worry about burning your fingers. It's going to take a little longer for those to catch. If your sticks are really easy to snap, that hopefully means that they're dry enough. Also be very careful if you're breaking sticks. I see a lot of people having fun smashing sticks against trees and stuff like that to break them, but it can splinter and you can get injured doing something like that. So it's better to put it under your foot, turn your head away, and snap it that way so you don't risk getting any kind of debris in your eye. So we need these things to catch. We don't want to move up too quickly. If we go up in size too quickly, we're going to smother our fire. So I'm going to come back over here, get some more of my tinder. And a lot of people try to go too big too fast. Little stuff is important. And the nice thing about the lean-to fire is you're not trying to create any shapes and you're not worried about many things falling off. You're just laying everything the same way. So we have lots of space in between our sticks, which is really nice because we still have plenty of oxygen. All right, put this under my knee, snap. Now we're moving up to our kindling. Still making sure there's plenty of space. Now, it'll take a while before this fire can get hot enough to cook over. So what people actually cook over is the coals that build up underneath. And so this will make a nice strong fire that will last for a very long time and actually get hot enough for you to cook on, because it's going to build a really nice coal base. Now if you're wanting to add like oak leaves or green wood or anything that's wet, all it's going to do is create a lot of smoke. And if you pack anything too tightly, you're actually going to smother out all of your fire because there won't be enough oxygen. So keeping things loose and allowing it to have time to grow is what's important to making a nice strong fire. So I've got to wait for the flames to come back up. They died down. We're going to let them come back up, which would mean that our kindling is all caught. And once our kindling is caught, we can start adding more fuel. Sorry if the camera's a little jerky. You can start spreading it out along your log a little bit more if you want. It's really important to only burn as much as you actually need. So when you think about some of the fuel that you can use, some of that fuel can burn for hours. And it's really important that you be able to burn off your fire until it's ashes. So if you're piling too much wood on there and you're going to put it out sooner than that, then it's not the best idea. It's not going to be the safest fire. Alright, so we're going to start with our fuel. This is really light. So it's a bigger piece. It's really light. It's nice and dry. So it's going to be our first piece. We've got quite the nice little fire going. So we would definitely want to make sure that pets and children are not roughhousing around the fire where they could slip and fall into the fire. And this is starting to build a nice big coal base. And let's see, you can see the little coals down at the bottom. This is the very beginning. This is still, even though it's a bigger fire, it's still not hot enough to cook on. You're going to need a lot more coals down there. Something that we see a lot and we hear a lot about is something that we see kids that really like to do. It's really like to take a stick in the fire, wait until it's on fire at the end, and then wave the smoke around. You know, that's a fun thing to do. The problem is that when you're doing that, embers can fly off onto you. It can burn your clothing. It can burn yourself. Or especially if you're in an area where there's lots of burnable debris around, like dried leaves, that little ember can fly off and start a fire somewhere else. And you would be amazed at how quickly and easily that can happen. So it's really important to learn that doing something like this is not safe. The other thing that we hear a lot about is the flaming marshmallow. So you put the marshmallow in the fire, wait till it catches fire, or it unintentionally catches fire. And a lot of kids are taken by surprise and they start trying to move their arm to put the fire out instead of blowing it out. Well, whenever you're doing this, you can have the flying flaming marshmallow. And the flying flaming marshmallow can, you know, catch woods on fire. So let's keep that kind of thing in mind when we're around the campfire, just to be sure that we're being safe, not only for ourselves and our belongings, but also for the forest around us. If you look, you can check before you start a fire and make sure that there's no warnings out. So if you're in a bad drought, it might be a high fire risk time. And if there's a high fire risk, you don't want to have a campfire because if that means everything's really dry. So if an ember goes flying off, then it can start a fire unintentionally as well. And you also have times where the let's see, I think we might need to put another log on. Flames are dying just a little bit. We're going to put just a little lightweight one, and that's going to be it for us today. This is way more than we need for this demonstration, but I wanted to show you how you would continue adding firewood to this. You would just continue to lean it across, let it grow. You can add more here and here and have it be a little bit bigger. We're going to move out of the way. Oh, wind. So you just saw the wind move. That's what I was going to talk about. So if you're having a fire on a really windy day, you're going to have a lot of extra oxygen going through there, but it can also blow some of your coals, ashes, and embers around, which can then catch on some of that burnable debris, like dried leaves around you. So keep that in mind. If you're sheltered from the wind, if you have a wall blocking the wind, you can create a safer environment to have a fire, but don't chance it, especially in dry conditions, burning on a really windy day. All right, we're actually going to talk about putting a fire out. So the best thing to do would be to let this fire continue to burn until it's down to ashes. And then go through the process that we're going to show you now. Because we're not going to sit here and wait for this fire that we've just made to burn down to ashes, we're going to kind of skip that step. But that is what is recommended, is to let it burn down to ashes. So as I said before, we have our shovel and we have our bucket of water here handy. And that's just in case there's any kind of emergencies where we need to be able to put out a fire. But now that we're ready to put out the fire, we are going, in this case, we're going to spread out the coals a little bit. But it should be ashes if you were burning it regularly. And of course, this fire that's made right here, these logs can burn for another hour right here. So we're going to use our shovel. We're going to spread it out gently. We don't want to create too much embers flying up everywhere. It's really important when you're putting water on hot coals or ashes that you make sure that you're not in danger of the steam coming up from the fire or the embers coming up and hitting you, because that can be really dangerous as well. A lot of people use sand or dirt to put out a fire. The problem is that sometimes it can just insulate your coals and keep them hotter longer, and then it can, be blown away and hit some burnable debris. So what we are going to do is we are going to put some water. Notice the steam's going that way, so it's not hurting me. Put some water on there. We're going to grab our shovel. And you make some mud by mixing it all in with the mud. So if this were ashes, you would be mixing all of your ashes in with the mud. And then we're going to add some more water. It's like mud soup. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. And then we're going to check it. Now, it's really important that you don't accidentally burn yourself. So if you take your hand, put it down over your coals or your ashes. If you feel heat, it is still too hot to leave. I don't feel any heat. I can lightly touch. It's still hot. So it would need another dousing of water to make sure that it's all out. I can still see smoke even from there. So I need more water to continue to put this out. Even if it looks like it's just completely out, there could still be a danger of an ember or a spark. And it's not necessarily that this will catch on fire, it's that the ember or spark will fly and catch something else. So that's the thing to consider. So I hope you learned some helpful things about how to build a campfire, and also how to be safe, not just for yourself and your belongings, but also for the forest around you. And I hope that you use this as inspiration to go have a campfire this weekend and be able to enjoy the great outdoors, spend some time around the campfire is some of my fondest memories. And please share with us yours. What's your favorite thing to do outside? What's your favorite campfire memories? Did you grow up having campfires? Or is this something that you discovered when you were older? Some of the kids we've seen here come to the Nature Center have never even had a roasted marshmallow. And so it would be great if we saw some pictures or something of your kids' first roasted marshmallow, because that's always one of my favorite things, is being able to give kids their first roasted marshmallow around the first campfire. So go have some memories created this weekend. Share them with us. We want to hear. Of course, if you like these videos and want them to keep happening, please like, share, comment, so that we know that you're enjoying them and we will continue to make them. Thanks so much for joining us this weekend. We will see you next time.